So if you're thinking about Florida as a possible home for the future, one of the questions you may be asking yourself heading into 2025 is it even affordable to live in South Florida anymore? And I don't blame you, especially with everything you see in the media. So in this video, we're breaking it all down for you. Housing, taxes, utilities, income, transportation, we'll even throw in recreation. So don't go anywhere, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to expect when it comes to the cost of living in South Florida in 2025. Let's start with the biggest expense for most people, which is going to be housing. But before we even go there, let's just quickly take a look at the overall cost of living compared to the national average. Florida's about 2% higher, and South Florida's roughly about 20% higher. And a majority of that, about 60%, is coming from housing. And just for reference, if you're brand new here, South Florida is going to be Palm Beach County, Broward County, and Miami-Dade County. Now, the single family home price median in South Florida is about $625,000. So that's about a 3.5% increase since this time last year. Now, the median home price for all properties, that's including condos and townhomes, is about $500,000, which is over 9% increase from this time last year. Home prices here are higher than most people anticipate, but they can vary, depending on the location. The closer to the coast or just any body of water, you can just expect higher prices. The closer you are to a downtown area, expect higher prices. But just because that 625 number may seem high to you, doesn't mean there aren't options on both ends of the spectrum. Remember, it is just the median, so there are options on both ends. If you are looking for something more affordable, you may want to go check out the suburbs, or at least just go inland a little bit, because you can get a better value out there while you still have access to everything that you're moving down here for. As far as rent goes, the average rental for a one-bedroom apartment, again, it can vary greatly depending on the city, the exact location. It's roughly about $2,000 a month. But it will be higher in areas like Fort Lauderdale and Miami, with the average one bedroom being closer to $2,300, and just the average overall rental in the general area being about $2,700 to $2,800 a month. And that's just for apartments. If you're looking for a single family home rental, you shouldn't really expect to pay anything less than probably $3,500 just for your basic single family, 3-bed, 2-bath, and then of course, it can just keep going up from there. And then just like home prices, suburban rentals are typically more affordable because you are further away from the downtown areas. And you can use that rule of thumb whether you're in the suburbs or in the city. Just the further you get away from a hotspot, whether it's the downtown, the beach, whatever it may be, the more affordable it becomes. And a lot of people that do move here from out of state or just out of the area, they do opt in for renting for a year at first to kind of get familiar with the area. And that does make sense for some people. But the truth is, when they see how much rent is, and then factor in the fact that they're going to be paying that for a year and then multiple moves on top of that in such a short time span, a lot of them just opt in to buy right off the bat. The good news is there is a right way to go about it. Whether you're 10 miles away or 10,000 miles away, there's levels to it, and that's exactly where we come in. First things first, make sure to download our free relocation guide. It's over 30 pages of everything you need to know, like cost of living, transportation, local attractions, and of course our in-depth area guides. You can find the link for that in the description. And if you are ready to jump straight in, we want to hear from you. We'll hop on a quick Zoom call, go over your situation, and just help you make sense of everything. We'll help you figure out which areas could be a great fit, and more importantly, we'll help you rule out the ones that won't. So feel free to reach out to us at any time. We'd love to connect with you. Now, insurance has been a hot topic in Florida for a long time. The premiums are high here, and it's just due to things like the high demand, the property values, and obviously the risk of hurricanes and flooding. Now, I can't give you an exact number or even really an average number on what your insurance premium will look like, because it's factored in on a number of different things, like the location, how close are you to the coast, how close are you to any body of water, are you in a flood zone, how old is your home, how old is your roof, what's the dwelling cost, if the home was to be destroyed, how much would it cost to rebuild. There's too many factors in here to give you an average number of homeowners insurance, but just know that despite what you hear on the media, it's not impossible to get insurance down here. There is a hurricane deductible, which is typically 2 to 5% of your home's insured value, which will be paid out of pocket annually. And that's just in the event that your home gets damaged by a hurricane, that there's enough money to cover the damages. Flood insurance is separate from your homeowner's policy, and just keep in mind that certain areas will require flood insurance, especially if you have a mortgage. And there's really two different directions you can go with this. You can go the private route, or you can go through FEMA. And I've seen this range anywhere from just under $1,000 to almost $10,000. Again, depending on what type of flood zone you're in and how high of a risk factor it is. Now, just keep in mind that if you are going through FEMA, your policy will take 30 days to kick in, so just make sure that you prepare for that and give yourself enough time, but that's obviously something that we can discuss whenever you're ready. Taxes are another hot topic here in South Florida, and just Florida in general. Florida is known for tax-friendly policies, like the fact that it's one of the few states with no state income tax, which is huge for a lot of people, especially if you're relocating from a place like New York or California. And this could be good for a lot of people, but there are pros and cons to this, and it's usually made up with other taxes like property taxes. The average property tax rate in this area in South Florida is about 1.9 to 2.5%, again, depending on the exact city that you live in. If you live in an older established community where the infrastructure is already in place and it's paid off, you're gonna tend to have lower property taxes than living in a newer development where the taxes are gonna be higher because they have to cover things like the new infrastructure, the utilities, amenities, even schools if they have schools in the area. And one thing that you do need to keep in mind is when you are searching for homes on your own, let's say you're looking on Zillow and you see a house that, let's say it's $1 million and the taxes are only $6,000 a year that it's showing for the previous year. Don't get fooled by that, because that probably means that the current owner has been there for a long time. They may have a homestead exemption. And when the new owner comes in and purchases the home and it gets reassessed, those property taxes are gonna go up. So just keep that in mind when you're searching for homes on your own. And I mentioned the homestead exemption, which is just one of the tax benefits Florida offers for primary residences, where they can reduce the taxable value of your property for up to $50,000. As far as sales tax, the base sales tax rate in the state of Florida is 6%. Each county may add an additional tax, so Broward, Palm Beach, and Miami-Dade each add 1%. So you can expect to pay about 7% for sales tax here. That seems pretty standard to me. When it comes to utilities, South Florida is pretty on par with the national average. It's only about a 4% difference. Obviously, the time of year is gonna play a factor into this, because the summer months you're running your AC nonstop, so that's when you tend to see the higher bills. Solar panels are also pretty popular here. I mean, thanks to all the sunshine, but one thing you do wanna check, you just wanna be sure if they're owned outright or if the current owner is under a payment plan. Because the last thing you wanna find out is that you're purchasing a home with solar panels thinking you're gonna save all this money on your electricity bill, but the owner is on a 20-year or 30-year payment plan, and that plan, if they don't pay it off, is gonna transfer over to the new owner, and then at that point, are you really even saving any money? Now, if you're buying out in the suburbs or any type of planned community or a condo, you can expect HOA fees. And you're gonna find these mostly out in the suburbs for single family homes, and then again, in all the condo communities. And these can really range anywhere from as low as $100 a month for a small condo building with pretty much no amenities to well over $2,000, $2,500 for a condo on the beach. The status of the association will also play a factor into this, if there's any assessments or if they have to collect any money to put in the reserves for future repairs. So that's just something to look out for too. All right, so let's get into transportation. Now, South Florida is primarily a driving metro area. This area is very spread out. So depending on where you live, you most likely are gonna want a car out here unless you're living in a downtown area where you can walk everywhere, but you will wanna plan on those transportation expenses. You can plan for your registration, your initial registration, which is about a $225 fee. And then the annual renewal is about $78 for the year. They also have a 2-year option. And one thing you do want to look out for when you're registering your vehicle initially when you become a new resident is the difference between the motor vehicles and the auto tags places that you'll see around here. So there's these places that you'll see in the area that will just say auto tags. That's not the motor vehicle. I went there initially when I had to first register my car because I just thought that's where I had to go. And I wound up paying about $650 for my initial registration versus the $225 that it would cost if you just go to the motor vehicle. So just know that if you do go to one of those auto tags places, you are gonna pay more. It's gonna be more convenient, but had I known that, I just would have went to the motor vehicle. So I made the mistake, so you don't have to. You're welcome. Car insurance is on the higher end here in Florida. And again, I can't really give you an average number on what your premium would be because it depends on the type of policy you have and obviously if you have any accidents or not. But what I can tell you is that I pay about $350 a month. I have one accident on my record from about 4 years ago, back in 2020, where somebody hit me, and my insurance was about $250 a month before that. So still relatively high compared to what I was paying in New Jersey. And then it shot up to about $350 a month. Now, the thing to be aware of is that the accident wasn't my fault, but Florida is a no-fault state, which means no matter whose fault it is, if you get in an accident, your insurance is going up. And I believe that it's 3 to 5 years for that to be off your record. So unfortunately, I'm still within that 3 to 5 year window. So my insurance is still high. Now, if you are somebody who is gonna rely on public transportation, just know that it's okay out here, depending on where you live. If you live in the cities, or I'll say if you live more east, Fort Lauderdale, Boca, Miami, somewhere more east, not the suburbs, it will be better. You will have options for the local train, the Bright Line train, the busing system. The further west you go out into the suburbs, it starts to get a little more scarce. It's gonna vary in certain areas. Areas like Parkland, you'll probably never see a bus out there, whereas an area like Coral Springs, even though it is a suburb, it's still a little bit more like a city, if that makes any sense. So you will see public transportation out there. But as far as the trains go, they're only out east in the cities. Bright Line is a great option if you're commuting between, let's say, Fort Lauderdale and Miami, or Miami and West Palm Beach every single day. Passes for that start at around $250 a month, and I've seen them go as high as over $600. But living in South Florida is not just about the necessities. Obviously, you're coming down here because you want to live a certain lifestyle and you want to have fun. So let's talk about recreation. Now, the great thing about living out here is there's always something to do, whether it's a festival or a fair or an art show or a car show. There's tons of free things to do out here, like going to the beach or even local parks. And I'm not talking about like the small parks, but there's a ton of state parks out here. And a state park pass costs only about $60 annually, and it gives you access to some really cool spots. And sometimes they even run specials where you can get a pass for half the price. And the beaches are free. Now, this might seem obvious, but I moved from New Jersey, and if you're watching from New Jersey or anywhere up in that area, you know that the beaches aren't free. At least the popular ones weren't. You had to buy the wristband. Back when I was there, it was about $10. In addition, you had to pay for parking. So just a day at the beach would cost you probably around minimum $30 just for the wristband and parking, whereas out here, you just have to pay for parking. And like I just mentioned, there's just always free stuff going on here, and I always send that stuff out in my weekly newsletter, so if you are interested in that, the link is also in the description. But let's get into the important thing. How much income do you need to live comfortably out here? Now, again, this is gonna vary from person to person, but using some calculations like the rule of 30%, that you shouldn't spend more than 30% of your income on your living expenses. For a single person, a good baseline is about $75,000 a year. And if you're a family, maybe you have a couple kids, I would say a good baseline is probably $150,000. Now, this is just a baseline. This is gonna depend on your lifestyle. If you're a little bit more frugal with your money, you may be able to get by on a little bit less. If you like to live a little and you like to spend money, you may want a little bit more. Either way, that was a lot of information, and there's only one way to find out what's right for you, and that's by reaching out to us. Whether you're buying or selling in South Florida, we want to hear from you. We want to connect with you and we want to help make your next move in South Florida your best one. So I hope you got value from this video. Make sure to download our free relocation guide and we will catch you on the next one.